The following program is rated TV-MA-LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Your Mac Life. Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, the 3rd day of July, 2013. I am your host, John Gang. Thank you guys very much for joining me here early. Not early, what am I saying early? Joining me here on Your Mac Life for the show. Appreciate it. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking to our good friend Jim Jumper from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Unfortunately, because of the video that we had last week, Jim wants to do it again. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop him. He tweeted me all day long, making sure that he was going to be allowed to be on video. So, my apologies now. It just didn't work. I don't know why, in my brain, I thought somehow, and I know Jim. I've known Jim almost 20 years now. He's not an attractive man. Why I thought putting him on video was a good idea is beyond me. I'm sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. But he had fun, so that's why he wants to do it again. It was fun. Jim on video, he had a blast doing it. I like, if nothing else, I like you guys seeing someone less attractive than me. Because I look so much better by comparison, don't I? You got to admit that with Jim and me on screen, you're looking at me more often than him, right? Please tell me you are. We're also going to be talking to Jeff Carlson, a much, much more attractive man than either myself or Jim. Jeff Carlson will be on the show talking about his new book, the second edition of the iPad for photographers. Not just hopefully using the iPad as a camera, and I hope Jeff will tell people don't do that, but the things you can do. The iPad has become much, much more powerful. The original iPad, and the one I have, the original iPad, it really can't do photography as well as you'd like. The Retina display on the iPad 4, the processing power, the things you can do with it. I got to assume, and I'll ask Jeff this, that the iPad 4 is a very good tablet for photography. It's not a good computer for photography, if only because I can't get Lightroom on it. I can't get a full version of Photoshop on it. I can't get Aperture on it. All those apps are what I use for photography. We'll talk to Jeff about that. And someone will win a copy of Jeff's book, The iPad for Photographers. So, to win on the show, you guys know, if you've listened to any length of time, you go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com, and it's the first of the month, so if you are a non-subscriber, you've got to do this in order to win any of our fabulous prizes. Go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there on the top of the website is the YML FOIML contest entry form. You fill that entry form, it sends me an email, I drop your name into our virtual hat. And if your name is drawn, you win whatever prizes I'm giving away that week. If you're a subscriber to Your Mac Life, and believe me, I would prefer that you were, because subscribing means I get money and means I can buy things like motorcycle clothes. It was relatively chilly in the mornings here, and yet yesterday afternoon, peak temperature in the area was 34 degrees for our Canadian friends, 93 degrees for our American friends. 93 degrees in Canada. Our ovens don't go that high up here. It was brutal. Brutal. Canada today was the same thing. It was very, very, very warm. Luckily, the heat wave has broken. We're back down to our normal mid-70s temperatures. Nice and cool. So, subscribers, you can subscribe to Your Mac Life for $2, $5, $10, $15, whatever it is you want to do each month. Comes out of your major credit card or your PayPal account, jumps into my PayPal account, and I put your name into the virtual hat for the prize drawings on your behalf. You don't have to do anything. And as an added bonus, for every $2 over the initial $2 that you subscribe to Your Mac Life, I put an extra entry form in there. So, for example, if you subscribe for Your Mac Life at $10 a month, and some of you do, thank you very much, you get 6 entry forms. You get, you get 1 for the original one. That leaves 8. You get 5, because 2 divided by 10 is 5. Holy crap. That should not have taken nearly that long. You get extra entry forms, is what I'm saying. And so you have more chances to win. So do that. Go to yourmaclifeshow.com, the top of the page of the Foimel contest, or subscribe to Your Mac Life. Dave D says, first of all, Dave D says, gee, Sean, got enough pop filters there? It's just one pop filter with two elements to it, for you folks who are watching the video. And he says, just turn on the AC. Yeah, we don't have AC in Canada. Some people do, but the vast majority of Canadians do not have AC because it doesn't get that hot on a regular basis. Places like Toronto, where it gets very, very warm and very, very muggy, a lot of folks will have AC, but Sly in Vancouver doesn't have AC. I don't have AC here in Calgary. Maurice doesn't have AC in his house. Most places, I never had AC when I lived in Halifax. I'd be willing to bet if we asked Jim, he doesn't have AC either. It's just something you generally don't need. You'll get, in Canada, for most places, you'll get 2 weeks in August that'll be really, really hot, and you'll sweat and complain and bitch about it and sit in front of your fan. But for the most part, we don't have AC in Canada. What else we got going on? Something else. There was something else I wanted to talk to you guys about. I forgot what it was. Got distracted again. As always, email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. If you want to send us emails to comment on anything you see on the show, hear on the show, anything that you want us to discuss, questions you might have about things that we discuss. If you have questions about using the iPad for photography, send me an email to onair. to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. And we'll ask Jeff Carlson that question. His website, by the way, Jeff's website for the book is iPadforphotographers.com or jeffcarlson.com. Jeff Carlson, CARLSON.com. Check it out, iPad for Photographers. It's also one of our Amazon picks of the week. As always, I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I should. If you go to our website, yourmaclifeshow.com, left-hand side, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the Amazon picks of the week. Whenever you're shopping on Amazon.com, if you come to our website first and click on that link, even if you don't buy that thing, I get a bit of a kickback from Amazon. So once a month, Amazon sends me $50. I pay for stuff on Amazon, but not recently, because you guys would not believe. This is insane. This pop filter on Amazon.com, when I was in the States, I ordered it along with another microphone and some other stuff. And it was all $50. This pop filter on Amazon.ca, this one was $6.99 on Amazon.com, $19.95 on Amazon.ca. The new microphone, the lavalier microphone, was $35.72 on Amazon.ca. Oh my God. Blown away by it. Sly's been telling me this for years. I didn't realize it. Sly's been telling me this for years about how expensive Amazon.com is here in Canada. Amazon.ca is in Canada. It's ridiculously expensive. I used to buy stuff all the time on Amazon.com, usually little things. But I haven't bought a damn thing since I've been here back in Canada. Amazon.ca is just... And MacMan says, is that because of VAT and duties? No, the VAT and duties should not be double the price for something. Alberta has no sales tax, and there is a national VAT or GST that's called here of, I want to say 4%, 5%. Sly will correct me in the IRC chat room. So that's what the taxes should be. It's just utterly ridiculous. And Maurice is Maurice is stealthily handing me a beer. He and his lovely wife, Shelley, are off to Les Mis this evening. They're off to the Calgary Symphony, Calgary something, I don't know. He handed me a Rickard's Dark. I've never had one of these Rickard's Dark. English-style porter, so I'll try that during the show. Hopefully all my Canadian friends had a great July 1st, Canada Day. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself and saw a parade and fireworks and waved your Canadian flags and were patriotic as you possibly can be. Tomorrow is our American friends' July 4th, Independence Day. And yeah, you guys are going to be patriotic. I can imagine stuff is already blowing up in neighborhoods all over America as we speak, as you guys celebrate July 4th. So hopefully everyone on July 1st played safe. And all you Americans on July 4th also play safe. Again, later on the show, we'll be talking to Jeff Carlson, iPad for Photographers. iPadforphotographers.com is the website. Please go there and check out the things that he's got on tap there. If you want to get the book, wait. Don't buy. Sorry, Jeff, if you're listening. Don't buy the book yet, kids, because we're going to give away a copy of the book during Jeff's interview. So someone might win a copy of the book. But remember, you have to be a member of the Friends of Your Mac Life contest. So I'm only going to draw the names out of that group of people. So you have to send me an entry form right now if you want to win Jim's book. So this is only for those folks who are listening live, too. So I've narrowed it down. I didn't realize this. I'm narrowing it down even further. Only you folks who are listening live, or subscribers, archive subscribers, are going to be able to win a copy of the iPad for Photographers 2nd edition. We're also going to be talking a little, well, right after this, to Jim Down from The Loop. Did you hear the story? And this is going to be really interesting to me, what Jim has to say. The CEO of Yves Saint Laurent, one of the most fashionable brands in the world, is now working for Apple. Not as a CEO. And no, he's not going to replace Johnny Ive. Stop saying that, you idiot pundits. Why is the question? What is he going to do with, for, and at Apple? And maybe even more interesting, or more importantly, why did he leave Yves Saint Laurent to go join a tech company? I think that's a really interesting story. The behind the scenes, and probably we'll never find out, we'll never know what happened behind the scenes. But I think that kind of stuff is really interesting. So we'll talk to Jim about that and much more. Please stay tuned. Right after this little bit of stuff, we'll talk to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. This is your Mac Life. It's me, Jim, calling you now. I think the audience can hear me now, too, so be careful what you say. You there? Okay, but we haven't got you on video, right? So we're just going to sit around and wait for you to get your shit together? Well, we do, and there is and again, we are live on the air right now, so I just want to make sure you know that there is a demand out there for you on video. God only knows why. No, I don't know why. Okay, now the audience is saying they can't hear Jim. What the hell is going on all of a sudden?
Well, You can hear me?
All right, now the audience should be able to hear you.
Can they hear me?
Audience, can you hear Jim? This is working fine. There we go. It's working now. It's working fine yesterday. What the hell? So, folks, Jim is trying to get the video of his laptop up and running. That's why you're listening to us basically fill.
Filler. Yeah, I don't use this one much, so I don't know what's going on.
Is this the new one, the new one from Apple that you're trying to work this out with?
One of them, yeah.
Maybe there's a Skype issue with Mavericks?
No, it's not that one.
Okay, all right.
It's a different one.
Okay.
Yeah, this just has Mountain Lion, but this has been happening a lot lately with my computers. You know, the little fan for Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Has an exclamation mark. It won't pick up an IP address, so it says it's not connected to the internet.
That's bad.
And it's been happening a lot. But the thing is, all the other computers are online. You know
what? I'd be wondering if that's an issue with the Wi-Fi "quote unquote" card in that laptop.
Well, no, it happens to all kinds of different computers.
So it means it's a problem with your base station.
But I have 4 different base stations throughout the house, and it happens no matter which one I connect to.
So now it's an issue with your ISP.
But how can that be if it says that I'm looking at the network thing and it's not connected? It's got a 169 IP address, an internal IP address. So it's connected to the base station, but the base station isn't giving out the ISP or the IP.
That's just weird.
It is weird. That's what I can't figure out. I mean, if it wasn't connecting or there was something else going on. And the thing is, usually if I wait for a few minutes, it will just connect all of a sudden.
Well, the geeks in the RC chat room, Monty being one of them, says DHCP failure.
Well, yeah, I know that. That's what I just said.
All right, let's move on. And just rather than wasting time, listen to you tech support yourself. You keep doing whatever you're doing, and we'll move on. Just before we got you on the air, I mentioned to the audience that the CEO of Yves Saint Laurent has moved from being CEO of Yves Saint Laurent to an undefined, so far, new job at Apple. What do you think of that? Do you think that's kind of strange, odd, interesting, not? Give us your thoughts.
It is odd.
I think it's very odd.
I mean,
I don't even think it's just a little odd. I think it's a lot odd.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's strange. It's strange that they would do that.
Because it's not like he's, as some idiots online have said, this is Johnny Ive's replacement. No, it's not frickin' Johnny Ive's replacement, you asshats. But why? The question I was asking the audience, and I'll ask you, is why do you think he would leave what has got to be a prestigious job?
Well, my impression was that he was already out of that job because it said the former CEO.
Yeah, the former chief executive officer of French luxury group Yves Saint Laurent for special projects.
Right. So my impression was that he was already out of that job, and then they hired him on for this. So he didn't leave as CEO
to become
to become a VP at Apple.
Does this mean that we're just going to have designer iPhone socks?
Well, it is interesting, his experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems odd, but yeah, there's some places where maybe his experience will come in handy.
Well, the other thing too to keep in mind as I'm reading the Reuters article, he used to work at Apple. He was working at Apple in the early to mid '90s, and that being the case, maybe this is the guy that's going to head Apple's retail operations.
Yeah, but why would that position is currently open?
Yes.
Why would you have somebody come in and be head of special projects if their ultimate job is going to be head of retail? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, what I'm saying is maybe the special project will be retail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but again, why? Why go through that little thing? You know?
Yeah, little dance.
Yeah, the dance. Yeah, that part doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So, what is it about his particular skill set that Apple wants?
Yep.
It's got to be something in either fashion or retail or that segment of the market that he knows a lot about.
And it can't be fashion. Apple's never. I mean, there's no way Apple's going to open a line of. I mean, they already sell their own T-shirts, and they're cheesy T-shirts in the Apple Store. This can't be about Apple expanding their clothing line, can it?
No, I can't see that.
No, not at all.
I mean, just because he's CEO doesn't mean he knows a lot about clothing. He knows a lot about business. And no doubt he knows a lot about the fashion industry.
No.
But, Tim Cook is CEO of Apple. I bet he can't go down and whip off an iOS app in an afternoon. So his skill set probably has nothing to do with outwardly what it is. It's probably more a different thing, and I don't know what that is.
Now, interestingly enough, where was it? Pete Booth makes a comment. He was brought on to give the products a woman's perspective. Did he get me true?
Well, it doesn't say much for him, does it?
Well, Yves Saint Laurent is a woman's brand, a female brand. I can't think of I got to assume they make some things for guys, but it's certainly not thought of as a fashion house for men in any way, shape, or form. It is a fashion house for women, and I'm not agreeing with P. Booth. What I'm saying is that a possibility? You think that's?
Well, I mean, it's something to consider.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, without knowing exactly what he's doing, it's hard to figure because he's bypassing the whole hierarchy there. He's reporting directly to Tim.
Yeah, that's right.
So he doesn't report to Phil or Johnny.
Yep.
So there's all the design stuff gone, and there's the marketing stuff gone.
Yep.
He doesn't report to who's doing hardware. Bob. Bob's still doing hardware.
Mansfield. Yep.
So he's bypassing him. So it's got nothing to do with hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
Operations. Cook was the operations guy at Apple.
Yeah, but they're still operations people.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know that the company has hired or filled Cook's position as COO.
I don't know.
Hiker BC is saying retail, but Hiker, as Jim said, why do this special projects thing if only in 3 months you're going to move him to retail? Unless, and this is a possibility, that Tim Cook thinks that he was embarrassed by hiring that idiot John Bartlett or Brownlee, whoever it was, and maybe this is like a probationary period where they'll see if the Yves Saint Laurent guy can do the retail job before announcing before Christmas that he is now the new chief of retail.
Well, maybe it has something to do with those things that were out today, where Cook was talking to people about selling iPhones in a different way, or selling more iPhones. Certainly, they want to do that. Everybody wants to do that.
Sure.
But maybe that is the special project.
Could
I don't know.
It's a very, very interesting idea of what they're going to do with this. Speaking of interesting ideas, theloopinsight.com has a story, not a story, but a picture of the poster for the new Ashton Kutcher movie, Jobs, about Steve Jobs. The interesting poster, you saw the trailer last week. What did you think of the trailer?
I thought trailer was great.
Yeah. Is this a movie?
I really liked it.
Is a movie this you're going to go see if it shows up in the backwaters of Bedford, Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you want to see this movie?
because it's a lot better than what I thought it was. People were saying, well, is it factually correct? No, it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, nothing is factually correct. Look at that movie a little while ago where they, what was that? In Iran when the Americans were
Argo.
Argo were saved by the Canadians, and then they said, "Oh no, that wasn't real. That was real.
No.
That's what happened.
That's
the the Canadians saved them, but you can't have a Hollywood movie and have Canadians saving the Americans. You had to have an American go in and save the Americans.
Well, they couldn't get the accents right.
Yeah, nobody wanted to eat the beaver tails. So yeah, it's Hollywood, but the fact is, it really, really looks to me like Ashton did a great job.
Sure, yeah.
I was surprised, I have to admit. Now, when I saw that, things like when Steve said we have to look at the details, or this was Ashton,
yeah.
and somebody said, Steve, nobody cares about the fonts.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
You're fired.
I mean, can't you just see Steve doing something like that?
Yeah.
Now, whether that was real or not, who knows? I don't know if that was real or not, but they seemed. The other part that caught me was when the actor, the Woz actor, plugged in the first computer, and you looked into Steve. Steve was looking at the screen, and you could tell he was just mesmerized.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that. I can see that. Now, did that happen? Oh, who knows? I don't know.
Monty is asking now, did Steve bless this movie before he died? If not, did his family approve of it? His family had no involvement with it, and the movie was brought to life after Jobs died. So it had nothing. Same with the hopefully upcoming Aaron Sorkin Sony version of Steve Jobs' life. See, the thing for me of not having any real interest in this movie is the fact, and tell me if you agree with this, Jim, you and I are both old enough to have lived through this movie. We've been involved, even peripherally, in some of the things this movie portrays. We know the history of this movie. We know the real, in theory, we know a lot of the real history of this movie. So for me, going to see it and knowing that it's going to be historically inaccurate, even though it's going to be presented as Steve Jobs' quote-unquote life, it's just going to piss me off. I'll sit there for the whole movie going, no, that's not what happened.
Well, I don't really care a lot about that because I know that going in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into it thinking this isn't a Hollywood movie and, some parts of this are just going to be plain made up. So, I'm going to go in and enjoy it the same way I do with most movies that I want to go see. Yeah. I go in and I watch them and I watch it for entertainment. Yeah. I don't watch it for historical fact, except, Argo, when they completely lied at the
end. Does the fact that when it played at Sundance, it was reviewed very poorly at Sundance, does that affect your wanting to see the movie or not?
No.
No?
I could care less about Sundance. I mean, what does that mean to me? Nothing.
You don't care if other folks review a movie poorly?
I could care less. I don't read movie reviews.
No.
I look at movies that I think I'll like, and I hate reading about them, about what the movie was about. Yeah. I hate that. I don't like seeing that. Even when I go to like Netflix or something, or I go to rent a movie on iTunes, I'll click on the movie and I'll look away, and Monique will read what it's about to herself, and she'll say, "Yeah, that looks like a good one," and then I'll press play. But if it's got a pretty picture on the cover, then I'm all for it.
But that being said, doesn't a trailer do that for you? Doesn't a trailer perform the same feat as the description or as a critic's review of a movie for you?
Absolutely. And most times I would not watch a trailer of a movie. Yeah. This time I had to see. I had to see what I thought was how bad Ashton did. But I was pleasantly surprised.
It's interesting to see how many people are saying that they're very pleased with that. But I still hold a grain of salt to that because trailers are always the best of the best of the best of the movie. They're not going to show you what they perceive to be a bad performance or bad bits of the movie. They may have just shown you 30 seconds of the only good parts of the whole movie. We've all seen movies where the trailer made you go see the movie. Oh, this trailer is great. You're in the movie, and the movie sucked. And there'll be bits, and there'll be things in the trailer that don't even show up in the movie, which always make me nuts personally.
Well, we know that happens in comedies. If you watch a comedy trailer, you saw all the funny parts of the movie. That's just the way it is. There's 30 seconds of good comedy in any comedy movie, and they put those in the trailer. But I didn't watch the second trailer. There was two.
Yeah.
And after I saw the first one and I realized how good I thought Ashton did, I didn't watch the second one. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to see it. Now I know I want to see this movie, and I don't want to spoil it for myself.
Yeah. Interesting. It was interesting that you feel that way about it. I didn't realize that you had any interest in seeing the movie. You've read our friend Ben Bajarin over at TechPinions.com's review of his week with Mavericks. You wrote your review last week. Do you agree, disagree, have any bones to pick with Ben's review of Mavericks?
No real bones to pick. I mean, Mavericks it's an extension of what we've come to expect from Apple, I think, on OS X. Are there some things that, need to be fixed or need to be changed? Sure. There always is. Yeah. Right up until the OS is shipped, and probably even after the OS is shipped.
Sure, yeah.
So, there was nothing there that really got me.
You've been on Mavericks for 2 weeks now. Any things that you would change about a review, or anything that new that you've noticed or picked up on?
Certainly nothing that I would change. I stand by everything that I posted, good and bad. Yeah. The design things still bother me. The other stuff is, still good. I see where they're going with it, and I think it's a good direction. So yeah, there's nothing in there that I think is real bad.
I've read a lot about Mavericks, and hopefully I'll get a chance to try it in the next week or so. But I'm surprised at how consistent the reviews are. That a lot of the reviewers seem surprised at how stable it is. Considering this is, in theory, kind of a developer preview. Again, I think we mentioned this last week, whereas iOS 7, if you read or talk to folks, it's buggy and crashed. It's what you'd expect from a developer beta. But Mavericks is almost good enough to be released tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, depending on how far they want the integration to go, but there's obviously some things that they're continuing to work on, and that, still need to be fixed up. But I mean, if they were in a crunch and they needed to really fix something, release something, yeah, they could probably release Mavericks, and it would still have some bugs and stuff, but it would probably be okay. I mean, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I am. And actually, what was it, yesterday? I put the Mavericks computer away, and right after I left the keynote, Apple gave me a MacBook Air. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't even really turned it on. So I turned it on. So I'm back on Mountain Lion now.
Oh, the Air doesn't have Mavericks on it?
No.
Do you think that will affect the battery life of the Air?
Well, here's something interesting. At noon today, I unplugged the Air, and it's been unplugged ever since. Yep. It's 10 o'clock at night now for me. Mm-hmm. And I still have, obviously when the battery, when you're not using it for a little while, but the last time I looked at the battery, I think I still had like 2 hours left. So it's going to put it at like 12 hours that this computer has been unplugged. Now, I didn't, watch videos or, do any audio or anything on it, but I did my daily work.
Yeah.
Everything that I normally do, I did today. There were times when it wasn't being used. There were a lot of times when it was being used. Sometimes, I was outside, I was inside, I was doing what I normally do. And right now it's looking like it's going to last 12 hours on one charge.
I think one of the funniest things that I read about, I think it was Ben Bajarin on Twitter said, this is going to be a coffee shop killer.
Oh, yeah.
Because people now, you go in a coffee shop and you have to leave after 3 or 4 hours because you run out of battery. But now people won't leave coffee shops. They'll be in them for 12 hours a day.
Seriously. And I mean, I don't know how many people go to a coffee shop or sit outside, like in New York or someplace like that and do Photoshop and photo editing or audio editing and stuff like that on their laptop. Most people will go and they do their normal work, whatever that is. And if your battery can last 12 hours, I mean, that's pretty incredible. Yep. Now, maybe it wouldn't have lasted as long if I had have sat there for, 10 hours straight. But that's not how I work.
Yeah, exactly. That's how most people don't work that way. Huh?
Yeah. So, it's going to go to sleep. And I didn't set the, you can optimize your computer for ultimate battery saving, and I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I just left it, whatever settings it came with. That's how I have it. Now, I often adjust the brightness from my old eyes so that it's a bit brighter than what most are. So that would actually hurt the battery life. But still, I'm getting this great battery life. So I don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to knock off before 12 hours or, if it's going to be good. I don't know, but whatever it knocks off at, that's what it is. And that'll be a normal, regular day's work.
And it's going to be a great battery life no matter what. It's funny, Monty in the IRC chat room says, I hate that. I really do. There's never a table to sit at the local Starbucks. People have set up an entire office taking up all the space.
It's true.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Especially in those comfy chairs.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen people just completely spread out with like spreadsheets and a laptop and their coffee and everything else, taking meetings and all that kind of stuff at the local Starbucks. Yeah.
I just go over to the table and stand there and stare at them with my computer in my hand until they leave.
Exactly.
And then I sit down. Usually it only takes a couple minutes before they realize.
There are a lot of coffee shops that I've heard about. I haven't seen any actually do this, but I've heard where they will limit your time. And some coffee shops have closed off the electrical outlets to make people go away after 2 or 3, 4 hours.
Yeah.
Won't be able to do that with the MacBook Air anymore.
No, this is, I tell you, it's a pretty amazing battery life, especially considering I've done nothing special to the computer to make it run longer,
extend the life of it. Yeah,
just out of the box. I made sure that I had it fully charged. I charged it up last night, and then at noon today I pulled the plug.
Now, I have a question about a story that's not on the loop, and I want to ask you why it isn't on the loop. Everyone and their dog yesterday or Monday posted a story about Apple's putting copyright and trademark and all that kind of stuff on iWatch around the world. Why didn't you carry that story?
Oh, why? Why?
You don't think that's interesting? You don't think that's an interesting story that Apple is basically telegraphing the fact that they're going to be selling something called an iWatch at some point in the future?
I guess part of it, for me, to be honest, was the fact that everybody was reporting on it.
Yeah.
Everybody had it. So, I mean, I don't know. It wasn't all that interesting to me. Maybe it means nothing. All it is a trademark.
Sure.
Doesn't mean that they're coming out with a product.
And it certainly could mean that Apple is pulling a little funny on everyone. Doesn't cost them much to trademark this stuff. I mean, it costs you a few $1,000 for a trademark lawyer, but that's pocket change to
well,
Apple.
they have lawyers on staff for that stuff.
Right.
I mean, a trademark application is a couple $100 or something. I mean, they could just be pulling a funny. They could be doing all kinds of things. I mean, I didn't care enough to really post it.
I have always said the Mac community should be happy that I'm not the CEO of Apple, because I'd have an entire division of the company set up for disinformation. I'd be doing this stuff all the freaking time, all over the world. I watch, I whoop, I pup, I everything.
Yeah.
I'd be constantly sending out just this disinformation campaign to confuse everybody. I'd have so much fun with that if I was CEO of Apple.
Yeah, it'd be fun, wouldn't it?
It would be just an absolute blast just to sit back and watch the idiots at 9 to 5 and Cult of Mac and CNET report on these stories. And oh yeah, I'd leave fake iPhone 5s in bars all over the world, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it's. I don't know. There's a lot of things that people post that I don't. There's a lot of things that I post that nobody else does either.
Sure.
So, I just didn't. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that Apple's not tipping its hand, because this rumor's been around, as the New York Times stupidly said, this is fueling speculation. Have you guys been paying attention? The speculation is pretty well fueled, guys.
Yeah,
so
they don't need any more fuel.
Yeah, exactly. So from that point of view, yeah, it's a non-story. But it is interesting that Apple is doing this now. And as his shadow says in the IRC chat room, he's probably right. iWatch is a preemptive strike to keep someone from trading on the i moniker. So maybe that's what it is.
That's as reasonable an explanation as the fact that they're actually going to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and it could be. Apple could have all kinds of different they could own iPants or iSlippers, or, they could own whatever. And this is just another one where they said, oh, gee, let's go grab that so nobody else takes it.
It could be the same thing as all these patent applications. We see Apple patenting things that I gotta believe 75% of them are never going to be actual products.
Right.
But Apple's patenting them for the sake of patenting them. In case someone else wants to use them, they got to pay Apple for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Where is Amplified this week? I've just checked loopinsight.com. I don't see an Amplified. You guys recorded one this morning, didn't you?
We did.
Where is it?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
People need their fix.
I have not seen it. Maybe he has posted it, but I haven't seen it on Twitter yet. That's where I usually see it, is when he posts it. I see it on Twitter.
When's the next issue of the Loop magazine coming out?
Tomorrow morning.
There we go. So, folks, check that out. Loopinsight.com is the website. Amplified is the podcast. Jim Dalrymple is our guest. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
Talk to you later, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. Well, sorry we couldn't get Jim on video, kids. That's disappointing. We're so looking forward to getting Jim on video, and because he switched computers, we couldn't do that. But fingers crossed, our next guest will be on video. We hope. We're praying, personally praying. I am. Our next guest will be Jeff Carlson. He is the author of a new book called The iPad for Photographers, and we'll have him on in just a moment. Stay tuned. This is your Mac Life.
Hello.
Jeff Carlson, iPad for Photographers. Jeff, we are live on the air. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am good. Thanks very much for joining me. This is the second edition of the iPad for Photographers. How do you go about planning the second edition? Do you just sort of sit back and wait, or is it the stuff that you couldn't fit into the first edition that you're putting in the second edition?
A lot of it was kind of watching the whole field evolve, really. So
hang on a second. I thought we were going to have you on video, Jeff. Where
I
are
thought
you?
I thought we were going to. I was just going to ask you if I was on video. Wait a minute. Let me see. How about the magic of now? Hello.
There we go. Now I got. Hang on a second. Let me get you all big and pretty on my screen. Now you won't be able to see me, Jeff, because of the way my video is set up, but the audience will be able to see you. And there he is. There he is. There's Jeff. So yeah, how do you decide on second edition of books or third or fourth editions?
I say that's awesome. You have a big and pretty button. I need that. Like most days. Oh no, wait, I'm a freelancer. Nobody cares if I'm big and pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I first pitched the idea of doing this book to Peach Pit, the iPad was still relatively new, and I guess it sort of still is. But and people were starting to do interesting things with photography with it, but it was really kind of early days. And in the last year, there have been a lot of apps that have come out. There have been a lot of new devices that have come out. And so when I went to start working on the revision, excuse me, it was just a matter of saying, okay, like what's changed, what's new and improved, and it turned out there's quite a bit just in 1 year.
Let's talk about what has changed in 1 year. Are we talking about apps? Are we talking about the actual iPad itself, photography? Give us the audience a sense of what has changed.
Yeah, well, surprisingly, the iPad hardware has not changed very much. I mean, the iPad itself, a fourth generation was announced, but it's basically just has faster processors, a little bit better camera, etc. The iPad Mini is very cool because of its size. Because as I'm sure everyone's seen, you probably get a lot of this, which is,
yes,
people holding up the iPad. Here I am. I'm in a crowd. I'm going to take a picture of something, and I'm going to block 3 other people, but they can see the screen. Right. So it'll be just like photographing, say, the president or whatever. Which it's sort of funny because I don't know, like being a photographer for a while, the just the size and the dimensions of having this as a camera are just weird. Yep. But I see it all the time, and I think it's because of people who like that's the camera that they have with them. Yep. And also when you take a picture with that, you've got this giant viewfinder. Yeah. And especially people who may not have great vision, or maybe they're getting older. They don't want to have to focus on a little 2-inch screen on the back of a tiny little camera. You've got this big massive viewfinder. So that's new. In fact, I added a chapter just about things you can do to take photos with the iPad. I didn't have that in the first edition because at the time the only option was the iPad 2, and man, that has crummy cameras. Like it's not even the act of taking it. It's just that like the results are so bad, and yet I still hear from people. Hopefully I'm not going too far off on tangents, but when I did a talk at Macworld about the iPad for photographers, I was going to open up with a joke. I was going to say, okay, now everybody lift up your iPads and we'll take a picture. And right before that, like a guy came up to the stage and he's like, I really love that you're doing this topic because I take pictures with my iPad all the time. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, we're not going to open with that joke. Right. But it also proved the point that people are using it because it has a camera, and especially in the third and fourth generation in the iPad Mini, like the cameras are pretty decent. So there's stuff that you can do. But in terms of like has the iPad become like the ultimate camera? No, like that hasn't really changed. Mm-hmm. What's changed are ways to process photos, ways to edit photos. A big focus of my book is like, can you take an iPad with you on vacation or out for a photo shoot or something like that, and not bring a laptop? Yeah. Because even though you have something like a MacBook Air, which is nice and thin, it's still a little more bulk than some people want, and especially if you're halfway serious about photography, you probably already have plenty of bulk and lenses and camera bodies and things like that. So plus I don't know, maybe this isn't the same for everybody else, but even if you're on vacation and you have a laptop, it still kind of feels like you're working. Yeah. So having the iPad, being able to import photos and see the results of what you're shooting almost right away can be a really helpful thing if you're in the field or if you're in the studio and things like that. So I'm sorry. Go ahead and just interrupt me if I'm rambling on. So.
No, not at all. It's interesting getting your thoughts on this. Monty in our RSC chat room says, but they say the best camera in the world is the one you have with you. That may not be true for the iPad anymore, is it? That is not the best camera to have with you. You'll kind of, like you said, you'll kind of dopey, you'll kind of goofy doing it that way. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot better cameras, even arguably the iPhone. So if we take the iPad as a camera out of the mix, what does the iPad bring to photographers as a device, not a camera, that folks can take advantage of from that point of view? Considering it's not difficult, considering it's a bit of a pain to get photos from an SLR or from your iPhone or from a point and shoot into the iPad.
Right. Well, that's kind of the key. I mean, there are now easier ways to do it. It's not super simple, but it's also like you're pretty much just importing things into the iPad, which is a computer basically. Yeah. And so you can do that either by having a little adapter that you can pop your memory card into, or one of these. I don't know how many people are watching this on video, so we'll just
millions.
Okay, millions, good. So this here is a little iFi wireless card.
Big fan of the iFi card, always have been.
Excellent. And so what's neat about the iFi is you can be shooting, and while you're shooting, you can be transferring photos to the iPad. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is I've never been a big fan of the iFi software.
Yeah.
It's a bit buggy, and so instead I use an app called PhotoSnitch, and PhotoSnitch works with pretty much anything wireless. So that like there are some Canon grips that have wireless capabilities. You have Toshiba cards, and so that is a much better way of bringing things in. It's more reliable. It seems to be a little bit faster, and shooting wirelessly like that. It's not, well, it's certainly faster than shooting, stop, plug in your card, wait for it to import, and do all of that. There's still a bit of a lag, but you would have that going to a computer too.
Sure, yeah.
And then I haven't played with it yet, but there's a new iFi Mobi card that basically does the same thing, but it's designed to pair with an iPad or an iPhone. Mm-hmm. And so I think that attempts to get rid of some of the friction of connecting your device to the card's network that the camera creates. And so that's promising. But then another thing that's come up this year, which is sort of new and interesting, are little devices like this. This is called the iUSB port camera.
The hell is that?
It's a terrible name. The iUSB port camera, and I apologize to the good folks at Hyper. It's just a clunky name. Yeah. But it's just a little wireless doohickey. Okay. What's cool about the wireless doohickey is that it sits in your DSLR's hot shoe. Okay. It doesn't actually get any power or transfer from it. It's just using that as a place to stick it so it doesn't fall off. And then it has a USB cable that you connect to your camera. And using that, you can do wireless transfers from the camera to your iPad without using an iFi card. But that's only like the tiniest part of it, because what this allows you to do is control your camera from the iPad. So for example, let's say you are doing some sort of a studio shoot. I mean, and so you want to be able to keep your camera locked down. You don't want to have to like keep coming over to push the shutter button, which could bump it. Let's say you're shooting food or something for a food blog. This lets you control most of the aspects of the camera. So you can change the shutter speed, you can change the aperture, you can change the ISO, all of these things using this. And what's also great, because it's wireless, you're not tripping over tether cables and things like that. And so this allows you to control the camera and view right away what you're getting, so that you don't have to, shoot, stop, go examine what the results are. there's another one here called a Cam Ranger that does the same thing. I actually like the Cam Ranger a little bit better because of their software, although it doesn't have a little clever mount point onto the camera.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, and this is actually the hardware is a wireless router that they've slapped the Cam Ranger name onto, which is sort of funny. But they give it they ship it with a little case with a carabiner, so you can clip it on so it doesn't totally get lost.
Yep.
But anyway, those are very cool things, and I think definitely like they're sort of hardware starting points to be able to do other things. So for example, like with these you can do bracketing and put together HDR photos. You could set up intervalometers for long exposures. And in fact, with the Cam Ranger, what's cool is you can set, let's say you want to do a shot of the night sky over several hours. You can set that up with the iPad, and then you don't need to have the iPad maintain an active connection. You just have the Cam Ranger connected to the camera, and it just does its thing for however many hours you specify. And then at the end, you bring over the images. So
talk about one of the things I loved about the iPhone originally was not the camera of it per se, because the original iPhone camera wasn't all that great, but it was all the cool, fun software that you had on the iPhone, and now you have a lot of that on the iPad. Tell us about some of the software for not only taking but also manipulating photos that you talk about in the iPad for Photographer's Book.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool things you can do. So, the built-in camera has real basic functions. If you want to take photos that are better, you can get an app called Camera Plus, which is also available on the iPhone. They have a separate one. I think it's just called Camera Plus for iPad. And although you don't have the same amount of control over the built-in camera as you would, say, with a DSLR, it lets you specify like different points in your frame for focus and for exposure. So it gives you a little bit more control. Then it has features for, let's say, like it has an anti-shake feature, little things like that. Plus, of course, lots of filters. Everybody has filters because we can't take a picture these days that just looks like what you're seeing.
Yeah, kidding. Yeah,
you gotta like really do something to it. So, so that's very cool. In terms of, I'm just looking here at my list of apps. There are a lot of things you can do, like, for example, iStop Motion. If you're familiar with iStop Motion.
From Boink Software.
From Boink Software, yeah. So then they have an iStop Motion iPad app. An iPhone app, and what's super cool about this, it lets you build stop motion movies, but you can use another app, a free app called iStop Camera. So, for example, let's say you have an iPhone which has a better camera, but you don't want to sort of do everything on the iPhone's little screen.
No.
Well, the iPad and the iPhone talk to each other, and so the iPad controls the camera, so you can just take your iPhone, put it on a little glyph mount or something, a little Gorilla Pod things, so that it's locked down in one place, and then control the actual filmmaking from the iPad while you're manipulating the your little action figures or whatever it is that you're animating. So that's very cool. In terms of editing, there's all sorts of editing apps. iPhoto, Apple's iPhoto for iOS is actually pretty impressive. It does a lot of stuff that iPhoto on the Mac can't do. Like you can edit specific areas instead of like applying an adjustment to the entire image. There's another, if you're more used to something like Photoshop, where you want to have layers and levels and sliders and things like that, there's an app called Photogene, which is very good. Snapseed, which Google bought last year, is a very good intuitive way of applying adjustments and filters and things like that. And then I sort of like, there's an app called Handy Photo by I think it's called Advasoft, And what Handy Photo does, it has some sort of basic correction tools, but it also has like this retouch tool. So let's say there's something in the background of a shot that you took. For example, I have a photo of my daughter playing in the leaves, and I was being dad, and I was taking pictures, and I was having fun, and she's throwing leaves everywhere. It's lots of fun. And then later I'm looking at the shots and totally did not notice the ugly like yellow and blue plastic trike in the background. So like it's all this very very autumn browns and oranges and all these great colors, and then splat like plastic blue. Ugh. And what's cool about this is you bring that photo into Handy Photo. Then there's also a standalone one called Touch Retouch, I think, same company. And you basically just paint that out, and then when you hit OK, it disappears, and it fills in that area. It's using the same technology that Adobe calls I've just lost it. I don't know, Smart Replace or Smart Paste.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I can't remember it either, but yeah.
Anyway, but the idea is it's looking at the area and it's filling in those pixels based on like the stuff around it, so that it looks, it doesn't look like someone just scooped out something like an ice cream cone. And so that's really cool, and it has some features for also like if you have like let's say you have a shot and there's like some distraction at the edge, like a tourist walked into the frame or something. You could remove that, or it has a mode where it'll like extend out the edges so that they'll be cleaner. So neat stuff like that, which I don't know. I think people probably don't expect to have on an iPad, because of course we know that an iPad is only for viewing content, not creating content. And it's stuff that's really starting to take advantage of the fact that hey, this is a device that's got a good amount of memory now and a good processor, and let's see what we can do with it.
Do you think of the iPad as the iPad for photographers, not only the actions but the book itself, as something just for the average user, or can the iPad be used by pros? I think of the iPad and pros as you would do that only in case of emergency. You were in Egypt and you dropped your laptop off the pyramids and, oh my God, I need to edit, I'm going to use my iPad. Or can pros actually use the iPad for editing?
Yes and no. So it's some of what you say, and there are a few professional limitations, but before I'll get to that, I'll say yes, pros can definitely use it, because I was thinking of people who are either shooting out in the field, and that can be someone on vacation, or someone actually doing a photo shoot, and they want fast feedback on what they're getting, and also photographers working in the studio. Another great thing about the iPad that I think is happening more and more is that like you'll be in the studio, and you have your setup and your lights and everything is set up over here, and you'll have the client is there because they want to see how things are going, and maybe whatever. So what the iPad will let you do is, and you can use like these little wireless things. There's also a whole system by Phase One, and what that will allow you to do is, you can take your photos and you hand the iPad to the client, and you sit them way in the comfy couch on the other side of the room. So that they can still see what's going on. They can still get immediate feedback on what's happening, but you don't necessarily have people, like kind of crowding around or getting in the way, or, and, they probably don't want to be in your way either, because you're the pro photographer, and, it's probably costing them a lot of money to have that time spent. So there they can just fire off some shots and say, wow, this looks really great, but can we get some more, warmer color in there, or can we, like say, if you have a food stylist that needs to be looking at things, so that sort of immediate feedback. I think the biggest thing right now that's keeping the iPad from, say, replacing a computer is there are a few limitations that are just baked into the OS that limit it a bit. So, for example, when you're talking about doing editing, you can absolutely, edit the heck out of things, but if you're shooting RAW, for example, the iPad doesn't necessarily recognize RAW. It does, but it can't do anything with it. So, like, if I have a RAW image and I bring it into iPhoto, I can edit it and save it. But when I save it, it'll only be a JPEG. And I mean, obviously, you don't want to be editing the actual RAW files, because that's sort of your sacred negative. But it turns out that what you're actually editing is the JPEG preview that the camera created for the RAW, and so you're missing out on stuff. The way to get around that is to shoot in RAW plus JPEG and generate high resolution JPEGs and edit those. And so it's entirely possible to do that. Make quick edits and adjustments, say cropping and maybe some exposure changes, and then take that JPEG and say upload it to your newspaper or service bureau or client or whomever, and then once that sort of immediate need is done, then you can take the RAW files and put them onto your computer and do finer adjustments that you would hand in for, say, higher resolution advertising or something like that.
I'm talking to Jeff Carlson. He is the author of the second edition, the iPad for Photographers. His website, iPad4photographers.com. You can also check him out at jeffcarlson.com. The book is available now. You can get it as a Kindle edition if you so choose on Amazon.com. One of the things, Jeff, that I always talk to book editors about, and this is sort of like my test to see how good a book writer you are. We all know we can take photos. We all know we can edit photos. The thing that's interesting to me is how people talk about organizing and storing photos. Give us some ideas of what you suggest for folks in the iPad for Photographers book for storing and organizing your photos.
Well, it turns out that being able to organize photos on the iPad is really what sort of pushed me over the edge to say, okay, now we can write this book. And when I say organizing, I mean doing a lot of the work of rating and sorting and applying keywords and doing a lot of that sort of meta stuff that you need to do in order to be able to have a good organization and find things later and all of that. But it's also really well suited for the iPad because you're very likely to have, like some downtime that you don't want to spend on a laptop. So, let's say you're flying home from your vacation and you want to go through and say, which photos you took are keepers, which ones might need some more work, editing work when you get home, or if you want to edit them on the iPad. And so doing that at times like that, or you're back at your hotel room and you have an hour to sort of sort through things and get an idea, or even be able to go through and say, okay, like these 4 shots I really like and I want to upload them to Flickr or Facebook or something, and then be able to actually keep that rating intact when you bring it to your computer, so you don't have to like remember, oh god, which of these 700 photos are the ones that I really liked. So there are a couple of programs that I talk about in the book. One of them is called Photosmith, and Photosmith is great because basically what you do is you import your photos into the iPad, and then you bring them into Photosmith, and it gives you the capabilities to rate your photos, with stars or with color labels, things like that. You can apply tags. You can apply IPTC metadata. So you can easily mark all of your photos to have your name and contact information and copyright information and all of that. You can put them into albums and such, so that you have some measure of organization of your photos right there. And then what really makes it worthwhile is Photosmith will then sync directly to Lightroom.
Okay.
And so there's a Lightroom plugin. As long as they're both on the same wireless network, they sync, and so all the photos transfer. But even more importantly, all the metadata transfers with it. So when you're done with your flight, you get home, like all that work that you would have had to spend, that night or the next day is already done, and so you can sync those into Lightroom and then get started on doing whatever you want, say building a book out of the shots that you like, or editing the ones that you wanted. So that, being able to take advantage of that, I think really makes the iPad a lot more valuable for photographers.
Sure, yeah.
There's another app. There's another app called Photos Info Pro, which does a lot of that same stuff. It doesn't sync directly, but in both apps you can also export the files so that they have XML sidecar files, and then import those into, say, Aperture or Photoshop Elements or something like that. Yeah,
I didn't realize that it did that kind of stuff, because that's really important too. And that, I think that's what separates the pros from the talented amateurs is organization, how you do it and how you maneuver it, and how you manipulate that kind of stuff into your laptops. I don't think any pro is going to use just the iPad. They're going to use the iPad for the way you describe it, but there's still going to be things that you need to do in Lightroom, in Aperture, in Photoshop. And the idea that the iPad can export metadata, export XML into those applications, I think makes it to me, a much more interesting tool for at least on location shooting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even just again, going back to if you're on vacation and you want to have these things, I mean, what it's been sort of great. I went on vacation a few weeks ago, and my wife wanted to see all my shots, and she wanted to be able to rate them and all of that. So I was able to just hand her the iPad so that she could review stuff and flag things that she liked in particular, without handing over my entire laptop and having her be digging through Lightroom and all that stuff. So that was really handy. I also have to say that in terms of pros using the iPad, I would say all of that is very helpful, but I would guess that most pros who have iPads are using them because the iPad also makes a really good presentation device.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So there are apps. The one I feature in the book is just called Portfolio for iPad, and it lets you build your portfolio so that when you go and you meet with potential clients, you don't have to carry around like a big old book of prints. You can just hand this over and have it run, like, let's say your wedding album of examples and
portfolio.
Exactly, and you can customize it a bit, and sort of show off, and that also gives them a chance, like they can zoom in and can get a good idea of the fact that hey, I'm a pro, I can keep things in focus, and I can all of that. So that, I mean, I think a lot of pro photographers have iPads, and they're sort of toying with them to see what they can do, but I think for most of them, having that portfolio is really the sort of gateway drug of iPad technology.
Well, I think the other thing is for some reason, it's kind of more elegant, more sexy, more hip to show stuff off on the iPad than it would be even a MacBook Air. Even though putting a MacBook Air in a client's lap is not the same thing as handing them an iPad. I've watched people do it in coffee shops. Someone just hands the iPad to someone, and you can see them. They're obviously flipping through photos. These aren't pros. These are family. Here, look at pictures of my kids, kind of stuff. But it's kind of a more elegant way of presenting it than it would be on any kind of laptop.
Well, and not to get all sort of touchy feely, but I think there's actually something to the fact that you hand somebody an iPad and it's all loaded up with photos. Like they don't have to like navigate or, oh gosh, did I just switch into another app or anything like that. Like they can use their fingers. Like it's a very hands-on. They can swipe. They can look through it at their own pace. And I think that there's that tactile sense, which is sort of funny because we're talking about like you're just looking at lit up pixels under a sheet of glass, but it's still that tactile sense of, okay, like I am browsing through these photos and I can look at something more closely, or I can go back to something, and that's my action to take, rather than here's this guy or this gal and I know that they're trying to convince me to pay them to do this, and like it's more of a, okay, here's my work. I'm very proud of it. Take a look, tell me what you think, and and just sort of like hand that over and like give potential clients a little bit more, I don't know, breathing room, a little more control if they want it. So
yeah, it's interesting. Tell us about the folks who are talking to Jeff Carlson. He is the author of a new book, the second edition of the iPad for Photographers. That's also the website, iPad4photographers.com. Tell me about the website itself and how that's going to be an adjunct to the book. It's one of the great things I think nowadays with websites and books is that, for example, you've got the addendum of your book on the website. If there are mistakes or new things or software that's gone out of print or whatever it might be,
mistakes?
It's now what? Craziness. So tell us about how you're using the website as a way to add content to the second edition of the book.
Yes, well, it's doing all those things. It's keeping things up to date. For example, I posted something today, the iUSB port camera. I still can't get over that name, but the iUSB port camera.
It's terrible.
They released a software update today that actually does significant things. It adds HDR and time-lapse capture modes, and so like updating things that are directly related to the book and the apps that are found in the book. In this case, in the second edition, the addendum that you can download for free is basically like a chapter about sort of like other helpful apps that didn't really fit into one of the specific chapter topics, but like things that are just really worth seeing. Like there's a program called the Photographer's Ephemeris, and it's this great app that will tell you where the sun is going to be pretty much anywhere on Earth at any time that you want.
It's a very cool app. I've got it.
Yeah. So that's and that's something that I could have shoved into a sidebar, but it didn't really give it justice. This chapter used to be in the first edition, and just because of having more content and a set page limit, we had to pull it out into a separate thing. But that's nice because now it's free for anybody. But I mean, the idea with a companion website is to be able to deliver that sort of information. With the first edition, it was actually invaluable because Apple announced the third generation iPad and iPhoto for iOS literally the day that my book was being printed. And I know people say literally a lot, but no, in this case, literally it was being printed.
That must have been painful, dude.
Oh, it was fun. It was really fun. I went down for the announcement and I'm just like, oh, it's because seriously, there's nothing that we could have done.
Yeah.
And so and in fact, like I was joking with my editor, I'm like, well, what if they do something that's like really photographer specific, because we figured that there would be better cameras, and what if it does all these things. And my editor was like, oh, I'm sure it'll probably be fine, don't worry about it. And then I got a call afterwards. She's like, okay, we can have a download. We can put a sticker on every book. And so, they had to, work up a thing. And so if you bought a first edition of the book, you probably have a little sticker like that's the special edition, because it was a sticker that said, hey, there's more online. And so I wrote basically a chapter that had sections on going into detail for iPhoto for iOS, and then also Adobe had just released Photoshop Touch, which is their photo editing tool. So things like that. I mean, I was a little nervous this time. I'm like, okay, the book's being printed now. What's going to happen? But fortunately, like they'd already announced the iPad Mini, and we figured, okay, there probably wouldn't be something new in the spring this time. So, but that's a good way of having that sort of additional information that I can just keep adding to, and of course the comments are open, so people ask questions, and happy to provide answers and things like that.
Well, I've been reading Jeff's stuff online for years now, more years than I can remember. Before you had kids, that's how long I've been reading stuff. But if you want to find out how Jeff writes, writing style is a personal thing. It's important. Go to the website, ipad4photographers.com. You can download a free chapter of the book. You can also download the second edition addendum and the first edition addendum. You can read more about Jeff and his writing, both on Macworld and tidbits.com. He has a couple articles about photography on tidbits.com. I think this past couple of weeks, you've written, is it 2 articles on Tidbits, haven't you?
Yeah. So we're actually doing something very interesting with Tidbits. This is basically my next book. I'm writing "Take Control of Your Digital Photos," where the whole topic is it's more computer specific, but like you've gone out and you've shot 500 photos and you've imported them. Now what do you do? And it's all about tagging and rating and keeping all that metadata and actually making your library useful, so that 6 months down the line you're like, oh, I know somewhere I have a photo of Sean on a motorcycle at the sunset, but where is it?
The hell is it?
Yeah, exactly. And you end up spending 2.5 hours like scrolling through thumbnails trying to find.
Getting distracted by other photos too. That's what I
exactly.
find I do.
Exactly. That's actually turned into like a job hazard for me, because as I'm writing books like this, I have to go and find good example photos. And I have a 5-year-old, and she's very photogenic, and so it'll be like 11:30 at night, and I'm like, all right, I need something that will show off this technique. And I'm like, oh, look, that's when she was 2. And I'll like watch watch a couple little videos, and then I'm like, no, wait, I have to focus to get past all this cuteness. So but then the interesting part about this book is we're serializing it. So the first chapter is available on the web for anybody at tidbits.com, and then the rest of the chapters are going to be available only for Tidbits members. So cool. if you want to read the rest of the book as it's being published, basically a chapter a week is what we've set it up for. Then you have to become a Tidbits member, and that'll cost you real money, but Tidbits is worth it. And there are very there are, I think, 5 different levels of participation. And of course, here's the pitch for being a Tidbits member. You get all sorts of discounts on a bunch of software, and you don't have to view ads on the website, and et cetera, et cetera. And so then that'll be published online, serialized. And then once that's done, then we're going to basically, I was going to say bound it together. We're going to bind it electronically into a Take Control ebook that can then be purchased by anybody.
You can go to the website, iPad4photographers.com. You can buy the book. You can buy it as the print edition from Amazon.com. The Kindle ebook of the Apple iBook store is available there. Barnes & Noble's this thing called a Nook ebook. No one even knows what those things are. Basically what it is, you choose who you like better, Jeff or me. If you like Jeff better, go buy it off his website because he'll get a kickback from those companies. If you like me better, go to yourmaclifeshow.com. It's our Amazon pick of the week. If you click through there and buy the book, either Kindle or print version, I get a kickback. So whoever you like better, and Jeff and I will arm wrestle for it later.
Actually,
Jeff, sorry,
buy
go ahead.
two.
Good point. Hey, there's
buy
an
one for
idea.
each of us.
One from each, and that way you can stop this fight.
Exactly. Give it as a gift.
Give it as a gift. Yes, buy two. They're cheap. Jeff and the folks at Peach Pit Press, the publishers of the book, have been kind enough to allow me to give away a copy of the book to a lucky listener. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my folder here. And Jeff, at your leisure, please say the word stop.
Stop.
All right, here we go. It's going to go to, wait up for it to finish scrolling. Up and down and up and down. And oh my God. Sorry, folks. This thing is still scrolling up and down. There we go. Mikhail Okay, first of all, before I say anything else, Jeff, will Peach Pit ship across oceans?
Oh, that's a very good question.
I know. I just the name under which I just did this for is in a whole different continent, across a vast sea.
I do not know. Well, and in full full disclosure, I haven't actually run this by Peach Pit. I've asked them, and in the past they've been great about this.
Yeah,
but
they always say yes. We know Peach Pit will say yes.
Yeah. So since they're in San Francisco, I think everybody left early for the July 4th holiday in the U.S., and also because their entire transit system's on strike. So,
you know what? Let's do this for the fun of it, and he can listen to it later. Gary Paul Prince, right? We'll put Gary Paul Prince on the spot. And say, we are promising Gary Paul Prince will send a copy of iPad for Photographers, second edition, to Gothenburg, Sweden.
Awesome.
Because Mikhail Fredriksson, congratulations, Mikhail. He's won a copy of the iPad for Photographers, not in Swedish. It's going to be in English, Mikhail.
Yes,
sorry. But we'll somehow twist his arm to get Gary Paul Prince of Peach Pit Press to send you a copy of the iPad for Photographers second edition. Mikhail, thanks very much for being a subscriber to Your Mac Life. I appreciate it. And Jeff Carlson, we've gone way over the time I normally allot for these things because this was fun. This is interesting. It's a lot more. It's an interesting topic because we disparage us. Talented amateurs or pros disparage the iPad as a photographic device, certainly as a camera. But I think you have proven, and the book will prove, that even if you don't use it as a camera, it can still be a very, very useful device if you can fit it into your workflow. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And I think that I would even say, I would say 4 years, the idea that you would take a computer with you on a photo shoot was going to seem crazy, like you're trying to drag a mainframe somewhere, just because there's so much potential for this, and that we didn't even touch on things that you can just do with your iPad, like having model releases available digitally, and have basically, all of your camera manuals, all your reference items, all of your magazines and my book, as PDFs on your iPad. Like, you take all that stuff with you, plus, do backups to online services, like all that stuff you can do with the iPad. And I think that the limitations we see now are mostly due, I think, to Apple having that idea that, okay, yes, the iPad can do some very cool things, but we're still focusing on an individual user. So, I don't think that there's any reason to prevent having some serious high quality pro level features other than Apple's focusing on other stuff right now.
Yeah, I agree. Folks, I've been talking to Jeff Carlson from iPad4photographers.com. Jeff, thanks very much for doing this, buddy. I really appreciate it, as always.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye. That was great. That was a lot of fun. Thanks very much to Jeff for being on the show via video. Monty asked this question in the IRC chat room, and we want to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on this too. If you're listening to the archive, if you're watching the video, if you're watching live, what do you guys think? If you're an archive listener, do you watch the video? The video is now being put up on YouTube after the show, and then I post it to the website. So you can watch it via YouTube, which means you can also download it and watch it at your leisure. For you folks watching live, do you like the video feel of it? Is the audio and the video quality good? We're still tweaking things, and again, thanks very much to Monty for all his help in setting this up last week. And I want to do more of this. I think this is a good way to present this stuff to the audience. I've been doing it now with the folks that I know, Jeff and Jim. And you saw earlier this evening, we had problems with Jim's video feed. That's going to be some of the downsides. So I don't want to promise too much with this. But also, because this is a service that's not ad supported, no longer is Ustream inserting their stupid advertisements in the middle of our show. This is now, for lack of a better way of describing it, listener supported, and from the point of view of your subscription dollars pay for the video. This is going to increase my bandwidth costs. This is going to increase the cost of producing the show. So the money that you guys are subscribing to the show is producing this video. And if you don't like it, if you don't watch it, if you don't need it, there's no point in me doing it and spending the extra dollars to do it. So that's why we're trying to get the feedback from the audience. So both in the IRC chat room live, on air at yourmaclifeshow.com during the week at that address, or to my address, personal address, Sean at yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know what you guys think of the video. Again, whether you're listening to the archive, watching, if you watch the archive, anything else like that. I will say one thing, though. If you are a live audio-only listener, I'm cutting off the Ustream audio-only as of this show, unless there is a hue and cry. Remember, we have a separate audio-only feed. It's no longer Ustream. That one is available on the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. The front page story when the show starts each week is the video, the IRC, and below that it says audio-only content. If you are clicking that link, bookmark that. It's a long, funky URL. Or send me an email, and I'll send you a short version of that audio-only URL or the video URL. Let us know what you think. Let me know what you guys think of this stuff. I'm doing this, honestly, to make the video and the show more interesting for the audience. Seriously, I've been doing this for 18 years. It doesn't matter to me. I can go back to audio-only. I have no problem with that. The problem with video is that you have to be aware that you're on video all the time. So you're not sticking your finger up your nose or looking bored or things like that. So it's easier to do the show if I'm not on video and not having to worry about doing something untowards or do something visually that you guys don't want to see. So if the video is of value, please let me know. It's very important to me that you guys let me know that the video has value for you. That's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks very much, as always, to our guests, to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com, to Jeff Carlson from iPad4photographers.com. Again, go to the website, iPadphotographers.com, download a sample chapter if you like it, buy the book. If you are an iPad photographer yourself, if you know somebody, buy the book and give that to them for a present. I love Jeff's writing, always love Jeff's writing, and I know the book is going to be a good one, so check that one out. As always, I want to say thanks to you guys, the audience, both live and archive, for being tuned into this here show. And until next week, as always, I've been Sean King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!